night, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Hear This Now. So, tonight's episode is going to be a very interesting one. It can get controversial at times, but we'll see how this goes. And it is the topic of should I terminate this pregnancy? Not me personally, but let's just get into it. So before we even dive into the meat of the situation, we need to understand why is this such an important topic for the world today anyway? And it is because of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. All right. Now I know most people don't know what Roe v. Wade is, so let me just explain. All right. So Roe v. Wade, 1973, was a landmark decision of the United States Supreme Court in which the court ruled that the Constitution of the United States generally protected the liberty to choose to have an abortion. The decision struck down many federal state abortion laws and fueled an ongoing abortion debate in the United States about whether or to what extent abortion should be legal, who should decide the legality of abortion, and what the role of moral and religious views in the political sphere should be. The decision also shaped debate concerning which methods the Supreme Court should use in constitutional adjudication. On June 24th, 2022, the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, eliminating the constitutional right to a termination of pregnancy after almost 50 years. This will lead to all but total bans on the procedure in about half of the states. So, in order for us to really understand certain terms that we have to understand what an embryo is, right? So, we're going through embryo, fetus, and then we'll define conception and pregnancy, all right? So, what is a fetus? A fetus is an unborn or unhatched offspring of a mammal, in particular, an unborn human more than 8 weeks after conception. An embryo is an unborn or unhatched offspring in the process of development, in particular, a human offspring during the period from approximately the 2nd to the 8th week of fertilization. All right, so we know what an embryo is, we know what a fetus is. Conception, or when pregnancy occurs, right? Conception occurs when a sperm cell fertilizes an egg, and pregnancy occurs when the fertilized egg implants in the uterine lining. So now that we got all of that out of the way, hopefully I wasn't speaking too quickly. Let's just get into it.
Wait, before we do that, right? I hear yesterday we started embryo fetus. Yeah. So people just abort embryos and things too.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do, because at 5 weeks pregnant, the embryo has a heart. So the embryo is more than just a ball of cells. The embryo actually has a heart at 5 weeks, and 5 weeks pregnant is when most women finding out that they're pregnant in the first place.
Oh, so the ball of cells is okay to terminate?
I'm not saying that.
Oh. No, I just trying to figure it out now because you say embryo and then you say ball of cells. But anyway, let's continue.
So here's the scene, right? Anybody could tell me what's the reasons people have terminations in the first place?
Yeah. So I have
Definitely.
some reasons, right? Krista, you wanted to go first? Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I have some percentages as well. I hope that's all right. Um, So significant reasons people terminate have they said that 40%, according to, I believe, two different websites that I checked it, according to BMC Women's Health and verywellhealth.com, 40% terminate for financial reasons, 36 based on timing of the pregnancy, so it's unplanned, 31% terminate because of partner related issues. So like if the partner is unfit, if the partner doesn't want it, if they think that they would be a single parent, if the partner was not the right guy, that type of thing, if they were abusive, kind of like that. 29% said the need to focus on other children, right? I guess they already had enough children and they just decide, all right, we done. Sorry about that. Other reasons, they said interferes with educational or job plans. So they had their plans, and 20% said that because it interfered with their education or their job plans, they terminated. 19% said not emotionally or mentally prepared. 12% had health-related reasons, so concerns for the fetus, use of medications, drugs, that type of thing, tobacco, or concern for their own health. There's some other reasons, but I kind of don't want to take up the floor too much. But one of the things I did find is that in all of the articles that I researched, they said that it wasn't just one reason. Like a few women or some women would state just one reason, but multiple women or most women had a good collection. I don't want to say good. I don't want to say good. We're dealing with an important subject, so I don't want to say it's a good reason, but they had multiple reasons to terminate.
All right. Emerson seems as though he has something to say.
All right, good night, ladies and gentlemen and viewers. My views on y'all hear me, right? Right.
Loud and clear.
Well, to add to your statistical information, I'll give you one other interesting piece of research that says for most of those reasons, if not all the reasons you just mentioned there, and I could add a few more, like from my own experience and from the experience of peers, some other common reasons women typically abort would be pressure from the men, that don't want to have the babies. That is a very common occurrence, especially among young adults. Also, and this becoming, I guess, less and less of an issue these days, but to avoid shame from family and from peers, that especially depending on your age, if you're a teenage pregnancy, if you're going through a teenage pregnancy, shame and having to face your family, especially when they will have to support the child because you might still be in school, or you may not have a job, your boyfriend maybe in a similar situation, you have a lot of shame from your family, and you have to worry about facing your schoolmates, your peers, so on. Inability to support the baby, that ties in with the age and with your financial situation and your life circumstances. And then just generally because it's inconvenient, maybe just not in your plans. You want to pursue a further education, maybe you have a particular job that you want to get into, that having a baby will derail your plans. So you're not ready to be a parent yet. And statistics show that over 98% of the abortions are done for this particular reason. And less than 2% of the abortions are done over more, what we would call more significant reasons, but we can get into that a little bit more later.
Well, you see, I was going to ask us to give our opinion on these reasons, like the financial reasons and the timing, partner related, all these different things, want to focus on other children. Are these things good reasons for terminating a pregnancy, financial reasons, I mean, I can understand why it will drive somebody to
Consider.
want to terminate, or yeah, drive somebody to consider termination. Anyhow, I don't know if I could really speak freely and openly about that because I don't have children. I don't know what it is like. So, but anyhow, in my opinion, financial reasons are not a good reason to terminate a pregnancy. You can always, but this is my thing though, right? If you are having financial troubles in the first place, why are you, raw dogging it? All of us were thinking it. Why you raw dogging it if you have financial issues?
We really were. We were. At least I was. Aaron, you could speak freely. You have to raise.
Well, Cristiano is the cutoff boss now, but anyway, let me just say this, right? The reason why I don't take the financial thing, the financial reason thing, is because well, a pack of rubbers is $25. You trying to tell me you had the energy to blaze people's daughter or sit down on people's son, but you can't spend $25 on a pack of rubbers?
Well, no, they could
True that.
spend the $25 on the rubbers. They
Mm.
can't spend the 200 and something on some milk.
No. You see, that's the thing. The $25 is what they don't want to spend is to carry the woman or the man KFC after they done blaze. I don't know.
Well, they hear
I
this
don't,
now.
mm,
I read something on Instagram and it says that waiting to be financially stable before you make a child is more like it's impossible. Not for anybody here, but I'm saying like they say in general in the world it's impossible because the population wouldn't be where it is right now if everybody in the world did wait for financial
we,
stability before they make children, and basically half of us here would even be here if our parents didn't wait for financial stability. Because some of our parents didn't even financially stable yet, and we don't live in
I mean,
twenties.
that's true. That is true.
Also,
and
we
Um,
here's the
forget
thing. Go ahead. Go ahead.
we forget two very important reasons that people is abort, which is one, sexual abuse. I didn't hear anybody talk about that. And two, incest. I didn't hear anybody talk about that.
I mean, I think we will get into those things, but I'm glad you brought it up anyway, yes. The more serious reasons for abortion and not just the typical reasons like, okay, I just decided to have a good time and now I am pregnant and I don't want this child.
And I feel like, okay, not to say that there should be, because I don't know, but if there were to have any exceptions, like because they're so serious, those would be the ones rather than the typical reasons why people abort.
I have a
Because it,
friend who
go ahead.
abort. I have a friend who abort because she wanted to go parties. And
Wow.
things.
Okay, so we have this comment here by Edward Lighthook, and I think it's directed at Emerson. It says, "When you say women terminate because the guy is not the right person, how is that? Didn't they know that the guy was not the one before they slept with him?"
Okay, well, actually, that wasn't really one of the points I made when I was when I was given a few pieces of information, but it is a pertinent point, any regardless. And hmm, how to answer that question? I think no, I think you're right. usually, and all right, I think all these questions boil down to the same thing: the level of seriousness that people attach to the possibility of actually getting pregnant. In the heat of the moment,
Yes.
and this is a particularly a young person's issue, nobody really care about that. Like my father does say, he say what will happen in 1,000 years is happening in 1 second. But when you're in this situation in the heat of the moment, the $25 box of rubbers, and $25 by the way is an expensive price. You can get rubbers for plenty less than that. So that's to show you how ridiculous it
Yeah,
is
they
not to
could.
have that, right? Not to have protection. But in the heat of the moment, protection is an honesty because it's inconvenient. The the possibility that you could avoid ruining your life over, I don't know, a marginal increase in pleasure in or 2 minutes to put it on, if you well, or 30 seconds, however long you need, is too much of a bother, you know. And like you say, that $25 could go towards 2 extra pieces of chicken. So that is really the issue. The issue is that nobody thinking about the fact that, hey, what if I get pregnant with this man who is the flavor of the month or the flavor of the night for all we know?
$25 is too much, you say, no, Amazon.
Yeah, yeah.
I
People want to pay
actually
less
have.
than $25 for something that could
Less
save your life and
You can
protect
tell
you.
me in my rubbers in a while.
less than $25 for condoms, unless you buy them fancy too.
Well,
We
it's a
get
fancy
rubbers.
thing you had to buy. I don't want nothing that go bust it in two chop.
No, not fancy in terms of performance. I mean fancy in terms of, you know, all the extra things now, boy.
Good thing is
I ain't really
40.
want to get.
Like the ribbed ones.
Yeah, exactly. Or the ones that is feel like the ones that I say does feel like you wear nothing. The ones
That
that not
good
made out
thing
of
is 40.
latex, things
Well,
like that.
well, so
Ollie, I'm not
you
old enough to
paying,
have this
you paying,
conversation, eh?
let me hush my mouth. Let me hush my mouth. Let that conversation by the friend.
But I
Wow.
actually have something to add to, well, Emerson, yes, but also pertaining to Sir Lifehook's comment. My viewpoint on this is that if you do not value the person that you are laying down with enough to go, like, okay, why is it that you would go with a waste man, basically, risk pregnancy, and like risk going through that whole procedure of terminating or buying other things that could stop you from getting pregnant, contraceptives? Why would you risk that? Is your not valuable? Do you not value yourself? That's what I'd have to. Do you not value yourself? If you find that the person you're laying down with isn't worthy of being the father of your children, why would you risk it? So I'm in agreement with Emerson, and I am on the side of Edward Lightbook.
Yeah, exactly.
And now that Krista just talked about, that those things there which you mentioned, contraception and so on.
Hmm.
The morning after pill and the birth control pill, would that be considered me terminating a pregnancy?
No, because the morning after pill is actually a contraception, just like the birth control. However, there is research that says that birth control um, has a possibility, certain birth controls has the possibility to abort children that you don't even know you conceived. You
Are we
understand?
talking? Are we talking about the abortion pill? Because I know it have the abortion pill.
No,
There's the abortion pill, and then
I can't remember it right now, so I'm just
okay,
talking from the top of my head. But I know it's not an
yeah.
abortion pill. It's a contraceptive, and like any other birth control pill now. And
No,
it
no.
has
What I
the
meant to
potential
ask
to
is,
terminate.
oh, okay, okay. I think I now understand. Sorry, I think I now
Yeah,
understand.
I was going after that and say, yeah, some of them does cause horse and carriage too. Miss
Well,
horse and carriage.
okay. The reason why
I
I
don't
was
know if I can
asking
say that
because
one.
I wanted some clarity now, right? I wanted a bit of clarity. Sorry for cutting you off, Aaron. I'm sorry. So what I found in agreement with Jade, the morning after pill is a hormonal contraceptive, right? So when taken within 72 hours of unprotected sex or contraception failure, it can help to prevent pregnancy, right? Morning after pills work by temporarily stopping your ovary from releasing an egg. It's kind of like pulling the emergency brake on ovulation. Where you're at in your menstrual cycle and how soon after unprotected sex you take the morning after pill can prevent how well it prevents pregnancy, right? So that's according to Planned Parenthood. The abortion pill is used as an early medical abortion option. It results in a termination of a pregnancy and is only used after pregnancy is established and no more than 49 days since a woman's last menstrual period. So they went on further and they stated that the reason there's a misunderstanding is because the morning after pill prevents a fertilized egg from implantation. Although research shows that Plan B Step 1 does not interfere with implantation, the FDA labeling on the morning after pill says that it may inhibit implantation, right? So there's a bunch of research, FDA. So they did research before putting it on the market, and they did research after. The research that they did before, I'm sorry, my notes are like giving me a headache right now because they
Okay,
refuse to
but
work. No, I
you
explained
don't
why
mean to
I
cut you
don't
off,
think it's the
man.
same thing. Mm,
I don't mean to cut you off, but I just wanted to move along a little bit. Sorry, Krista.
okay,
Sorry,
that's fine. That's fine.
but
I agree with you that it's not the same as abortion. It's a contraceptive.
yes, it's a contraceptive. But back to the reasons that women may terminate pregnancies. What do you all think about ectopic pregnancies? These are pregnancies where the embryo implanted in the fallopian tube instead, right? And in order to save her life and save the life, well, actually, just to save her life because the child will have to be aborted in order for her to save her life. So, should we condemn somebody for getting rid of an ectopic pregnancy? Because ectopic pregnancies can actually grow into fetuses.
Live fetuses that have a heartbeat and
Live
all that.
fetuses, well, from 5 weeks when it's an embryo, it has a heartbeat regardless. So, how do we classify that as abortion? How do
No.
we deal with
Is
that?
first a question.
You
One
can
question: can the child be born? Like,
Well, no,
no.
well,
no. So,
No,
then
well,
I don't think it should be
It's definitely
classified
not
as.
cannot be classified. Because if
and
the
um,
child, the longer you take to terminate the ectopic pregnancy is more, uh, is more, the woman is at risk of dying
Mm-hmm.
because a child cannot grow in the fallopian tube without the woman dying.
true that, true that. And seeing
I think
as we
Iran
are
was
on
saying
the,
something.
Aaron, you were saying something?
now, well, Isha was just going to say what I was going to say. I would just go and add a little more in it, in that the fact of the matter is that, I mean, I don't want to sound bad, but if the child going and go anyhow you take it, it's best to do what you could do to save the mother of the child.
So, in these types of instances, does the mother's life take precedence over the baby's life?
I would say
I
so.
could add a little bit to that.
No, well, it will never
So,
have a baby.
right,
Emerson was
Or
right.
saying
just
something.
not just ectopic pregnancies. Sorry, Asia.
Oh,
Not just
we
ectopic
don't
in
like it.
general. Now.
Well, I could add a little bit of insight on this topic, right? So, I think one of the issues we have in here is being able to classify the difference between uh, what an abortion is and what an operation that could compromise the life of the baby is, because it's not the same thing. An abortion is the willful and intentional destruction of the unborn child. It's something that you set out with the intention to do. But if the mother has, let's say for instance, a cancerous uterus, or like you said before, the removal of an ectopic pregnancy, uh, those things have to be done in order to save the life of the mother, and the death of the unborn fetus will be a consequence of the action that you have no choice to take if you need to save the life of the mom. So that doesn't qualify as an abortion, because that's not an intentional destruction of the fetus. So in that instance, you have no choice but to do that operation to save the life of the mom, and the loss of the fetus is an unintentional consequence. So no, that one is not an abortion, and is two, not something I feel you could hold against the moms or the parents.
So what do we classify as an abortion in the first place?
The intentional and willful destruction of the unborn child. So it's something is settled with the intent to do.
All right. And okay, so how do we feel about, just to go back on the contraceptives train, right? There are certain religions that will say, okay, if you are using contraception, then it is basically the same as abortion because you are stopping the natural order of things. God said to be fruitful and multiply, and so therefore sperm is a living cell and your egg is a living cell anyhow you take it. So be fruitful, multiply, don't use any contraceptives at all.
In the marriage bed on the file though.
I mean, true, but what does that mean for most people? It just means that what we can't watch prawn while we getting it on. Can't watch prawn while we getting it on.
No, but you see, the thing
Isn't
about it
that
is that watching porn is sexual immorality. There's a difference, right? Making love is with you and your husband, right? Hopefully. So I would say that, and I'm going to be blatant. I would say that whoever decides to talk that talk should mind their business.
All right. But some may say that this contraceptive thing is also sexual immorality. They will group contraceptives and abortion. I see Inshan confused.
Yeah,
So
because I'm
what I
making sense to me. It don't make. Where's Aaron?
now you go ahead now you didn't really talk
Tell us what you
to
think.
the night, so you go ahead.
Nah, because it have no possible way I could group those things together. It is not. First of all, what I do in my bed with my husband have nothing to do with you. That's not your business. Whether I use contraception or not, drink water and mind your own business and do what you're doing with your husband or wife. Don't mind my business at all. So just it don't I don't see how that come as immorality or abortion or any such thing. That is your choice to make. I don't want children now. I don't want children now. When I'm ready, I will have children.
So in
See,
other words, go ahead, Krista. Go ahead because go ahead. You see when
okay,
you start for that C?
I hear what all you're saying, right? And I am Switzerland with this matter because on one hand, I agree, but then on the other hand, I understand that these contraceptives only came into play when people started having unprotected sex and started, you know, doing the unlawful, and it's like, all right, let's manage this, how much fruitful we want to be fruitful. And back in the day, there were no contraceptive. I mean, the only contraceptive it probably had was the pull-out method, right? If we want, I mean, we didn't have the condoms, we didn't have the pills, we didn't have the thingy. the stick up, the patch. We
How
didn't
you
have all of
know?
those things. And we didn't have it.
But it's
My
a well
ancestors
documented
told me.
evidence. A well documented evidence to support what modern contraceptives, how they came about and how long we have them. So it's not a secret that the methods we have now to help with, you know, controlling and planning pregnancies weren't around all the time, and that may form the basis of the argument that some of those extremists have, that contraceptive is against the natural flow of things, you know, that
And
preventing
it's
pregnancy
understood.
is akin to abortion, is like a pre-abortion, you know, it's the same, it goes along the same lines of the thinking of abortion, which is you're preventing you're preventing natural course of action of human existence to take from taking place. I don't agree with the point of view, but that is the argument.
Right. So I stated that part. Now let me state the opposite part where it's like, okay, the fact of the matter is we are human beings, right? And we are very imperfect in our ways. And yeah, we make mistakes and sometimes we need a little backup to to help us out sometimes. And so the contraceptives help. And so I personally, this is a personal Chrissy thing. I do not see it the same way. I don't group contraceptives and abortion. However, I understand both sides of the argument.
Yeah, they definitely aren't the same thing. There's different things for sure. Contraceptives prevent pregnancy and abortions terminate pregnancy. So it's different things.
Only I have a question.
Ask a question.
What if, what if you get pregnant, um, but you find out the baby is going to be born Down syndrome or something? So you're gonna die if you carry this pregnancy. You will live, you'll be normal. But the baby will be born with a defect. Is that sinful if you decide to not have the baby anymore?
Can
I
I
would,
pull scripture on it? Go ahead, Jay. Go ahead.
before you pull scripture, I'm going to say something, right? That is, take it or leave it. So, this is my take on the matter, right? If you know that this child is not going to have a very good quality of life, then I could understand why people will want to prevent that, right? Now, in the animal kingdom, this is how it goes, right? And some people consider humans animals, but in the animal kingdom, this is how it goes. When the animal realizes that they made a child that is not going to be fit for the world that they live in, they either abandon that child, well, abandon that offspring, or eat it, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, animals don't have souls, and animals are not ruled by the same moral compass. However, if we are to think about things like that, and some people think like that, some people say, why would I bring a child into this world if it is going to suffer? I have seen some serious physical disorders. And sometimes I look at those, like there's this YouTube channel where there's a plethora of children with physical disorders where their eyes can't open and their skulls are deformed and they have to have like metal in their mouth and they barely have teeth, or they resemble dogs or rats and
I've
these
seen those
different
as well. Yes.
and
Yes.
these human beings are not having a healthy and an enjoyable quality of life because you can't close your mouth, you're always dribbling. Your parents will eventually die, and there's no guarantee that somebody is going to see about you.
Yeah.
How, you understand what I'm saying? Why
Like,
would
yeah.
someone bring a child into the world to suffer? Now, on the other hand of it, just
Mm-hmm.
because your prenatal diagnosis says that, hey, this child is going to be physically
Mm-hmm.
disabled or whatever, that does not mean that they will come out that way, right? But I mean, if you are 9 months pregnant and you take an ultrasound and you realize that half of your child's skull is missing, or even 7 months, let's say 7 months, right? And you realize half of your child's skull is missing. What are we to do then? It will be painful, but come on. These are the realities that some people live in.
I want to
I
light up that perspective, but let Krista talk first.
Okay, so I'm going to pull scripture and then speak on it. Psalms 139, verses 13 to 15. Oh, and this whole, I guess, chapter of the Bible, I guess, it's titled God's Perfect Knowledge of Manna. So, anyway, for you created my inmost being, you knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. Right? Now, this is a very tough topic for me to speak on, right? Because there's what I believe, and then there is my compassion for human beings, and again, the quality of life that people, experience. And I believe that every life has a right, like every child, every life has a right to live, right? And God's word and God's principle, and if you go through the Bible and see how God regards life, right? It's very, oh, what's the word I'm trying to say? He's very big on life and the creation of life, right? But I also, like, my heartstrings are also pulling at me on the other side of, okay, yes, there are people who, and to their own word, speak on the quality of their own life. And given that in this day and age, and I don't even know if it's right that we have the choice, the option, or that we've been given the option, we've given ourselves the option, whatever. But in this climate where we do have the choice to either allow this life to continue on or, I guess, end it, I can understand and I can at least empathize or sympathize with those who may choose, like in these instances, I with those who choose to terminate, right? I don't know what I would do. I have never had a child. I am not a mother. I honestly don't know. I would like to believe, the good Christian in me would like to believe that I would allow this life to go on and live and thing, but I honestly don't know. I haven't been through that test, and I hope to never go through that test. So that's kind of what I have to say on that matter.
All right. So here my perspective on this, right? And I definitely want to put that the perspective of that is okay to do that on blast. Because but not that I don't understand. You see, expectant parents that get a diagnosis of a fetal deformity. That's never going to be an easy thing for any parent to deal with, hearing something like that. But sometimes what happens is we have such high hopes and dreams for our kids that we treat that type of diagnosis as though it's death, as though it's death itself, when in fact, sure, it's not good news, but we see it as like the death of hopes and dreams, the vision of a normal childhood, playing games, going to school, growing up, starting a family, all that vanishing before your eyes in a flash. desperate parents start becoming vulnerable to this suggestion that terminating the pregnancy uh, could prevent the child from having to face all those woes and from the parent have to deal with all those problems and then they could get on with their life, you know. But it's certainly not that simple. I mean, consider the first and most obvious problem. The medical opinion is just that. That's all it is an opinion. You, what if you're wrong? You know, what if it's wrong? Would you be able to face the reality that you make a decision to terminate your pregnancy on the basis of a diagnosis that could be wrong? I mean, could the parents live with that? You could imagine the horror of a parent that have to that go through something like that, and then they abort a perfectly healthy baby. You might never be able to recover from that. And then, I mean, if you look at the perspective of using abortion to solve the problem of a disability, that is like the ultimate form of discrimination. I mean, consider if all children was discriminated against based on the disability. What's the difference between aborting a baby that likely to be born with a disability versus, let's say, killing a child? So what if you have a 1 year old? I mean, you could do the same thing. You could say, well, you dying, I mean, no kind of life you to have, so you might as well kill you now. You know, but you wouldn't do that, right? You wouldn't kill your 1 year old child that have a disability. And the same, you had to have the same energy that, towards terminating a pregnancy. I mean, consider the frightening prospects attached to that. If it's okay to kill a disabled child in the womb, I guess you could kill one that out too. You know what I mean?
I think it depends on what the disability is. If they say your child will come out with Down syndrome, I wouldn't have a problem. I will make the child. They say your child will come out with, it has some kind of disability where you just kind of be like, okay, if they say the child will be a dwarf, I will make the child still. But if they say my child will be born with um what's that thing where you can't walk and the same thing all suffering about. I can't remember the name of it.
Cerebral palsy.
Cerebral palsy, yeah, something like that. Yeah, right. If they say my child will be born with that, then I wouldn't want to make the baby. Because then the baby becomes in constant pain when it is growing up. Like its entire life will be just pain. So I wouldn't want to make a child like that. But if it's like Down syndrome, sure.
I
What you think the person
I
who has
don't
cerebral palsy would think? You think they would say I would rather not be born?
just now, I just want to add something here, right? I am not saying that aborting children with mental. First of all, I'm not saying abortion is right, okay? But I am just giving the perspective of somebody who is in a certain situation, right? Now, mental disorders. I have dealt with many children with mental disorders. Those things, whatever. You could learn to live your life with a mental disorder, right? I am speaking about children who literally don't even have a human looking face. They don't have human like bodies. They are severely deformed. They are severely incapable. They can't even speak. They can't think. They can't anything. Right? Why would anybody want, right, desire to allow this child to enter the world when they cannot do anything? And just to reference something here that I saw Susan Hippolyte say, who says the child is suffering because he or she looks different? It's not a look. It's not just a look. The child came out no top jaw, no bottom jaw, one eye shut, blind in the next one. These y'all don't understand how severe some of these deformities are. They really are
and
severe.
and then to add in like straight up poverty with that, because some of these people who were born with those disabilities, a reason why their life isn't, successful. One of the reasons, I'm not saying a major reason, but one of the reasons why is because they don't have access to healthcare. They don't have the money to even get proper food, water, drink, some of them. And so
Yeah, but
in
chances
addition to what Jada is saying, Say that again.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Am I sticking?
No.
Oh, okay. Right. I just saying. In addition to that, that could like the disability and the poverty, because I did state earlier that women, it's not just one reason they say, it's multiple reasons that they think. So it might be an amalgamation of reasons that they're like, all right, this is why this might be the best decision for me and the baby. So poverty, in addition to those types of deformities, I mean, I could understand why someone wouldn't want to bring that life in, especially if they're not going to have the quality of life or even get access. Okay, if you have a medical disability, if you can't even get access to deformity. Let's use the word deformity for clear distinction. If you have an actual deformity and you can't, and it's affecting your life, it will affect your life, and you can't get medical help or drinking water or food or whatever it takes for you to live a comfortable life or even just a life, I think I could understand why people would choose to abort or why the option is given. Because, in some cases it's given. It's what's it called? Recommended or offered by medical professionals. I could understand why it's even offered in those instances.
Let me
I
give you a
understand what you're
small
saying,
point to
Mr. Bell.
consider. Let me give you a small point to consider again. What about, let me give you an example. What about if you know the baby go born without arms and legs? How will you feel about that? No arms, no legs. And you know that in advance.
The
I'm making
amount
it
of
try
people
still.
without arms and legs.
Making it still? Well, let me give you an example of somebody who that applies to, right? That our motivational speaker who is a born again Christian. His name is Nicholas Vujicic. He basically have no arms and no legs.
Yeah,
Right
we
now he
know him.
married and he married with children. He wrote 12 books and he's a motivational speaker for the last roughly 20 years. No arms, no legs.
Yeah, his quality of life wouldn't be as affected as a person who literally misshapen.
Well, sure. Is levels to the same argument.
No, but I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying that I could
I think we
understand
all
why
understand.
somebody, yeah, I'm just saying I could understand why somebody would say, guess what, I ain't doing this. You know.
Yeah, we could understand
Exactly.
why.
I think I
But
don't want to
they
speak
had
for
to consider
everybody
that
on
they
this
don't know who the
panel. I
child
don't want
might
to
become.
speak for Yeah, I don't want to speak
And
for
it becomes
everybody on this
hungry.
panel, but I think we understand that, life, like we believe in life being, given a chance to live. We believe that God created life, God created all things. And so it should, first of all, I don't know if we should even be given that chance, that choice. But the fact of the matter is, in today's century, day and age, whatever, we have been. And I think a level of understanding needs to be a level of understanding and compassion needs to be like heavy on this situation. It's not just black and white. You understand what I'm saying? It's not black and white. And these things affect people in different ways. We don't know what people are going through. We have
I was not
no
about to say that.
idea like what it feels like to go through some of the things these people go through. So I don't think any of us are saying, all right, abortion is yay, all right, yeah, let's do it. I don't think any of us are saying that, but I do think we're trying to say, all right, you know what? We empathize, we sympathize with you, even though this may not be a right decision. We understand why you made it, and we're not condemning you for it. I think.
Go ahead.
Yeah, 100. No condemnation here at all. We just don't want a little risk. Ladies and gentlemen out there, we just don't want a little risk losing the next Stephen Hawking, according to Edward, or anybody else who could be incredible, even though they mightn't be born perfect by our standards.
I
That is all.
condemn it. Actually, I'm not condemning.
I have a question, right, for everybody on the
Mm-hmm.
panel. Um, we know that abortion well, is mainly the women who basically, I don't want to say go through the whole abortion thing, but go through the whole abortion thing, right? Should men have an opinion on abortions too, or should we shut them out and just be quiet?
Okay. Cool, cool.
Where's
So,
your thoughts, Aaron?
Yeah, what are your thoughts?
Um, I believe that the men who actually doing some good for society, meaning that the men who actually contributing profitably to society should have something to say, should have a say in it. The deadbeats who, yeah, they're forced to pay child support and them kind of stuff, I don't think they should let any of those people talk. But I know the question they're going to ask, how would you know? Right? And that is a good question. I don't know how to answer that question. How would you
how would
know, yeah, who to
who differ?
give
Oh, okay.
basically the mic to talk on this abortion topic, being a man?
No, you will must know if who you're going with is a deadbeat.
No, here's
No,
the
but
thing.
what I'm
If they
saying is
have,
I'm
if they're
talking about
sleeping with multiple
I
people,
talk,
then they're not going to know who the father is.
no, I'm talking about in general, right? I'm just speaking about
Hmm.
in general here. Like you don't know anybody, like a group of men just got around talking, right? You don't really know
Mm-hmm.
who really contributing positively to society and who just adding to the misery of it. I mean, I just being
Here my
real, right?
perspective. Here my perspective on that. After the baby born, societies want to hold men equally accountable for the upbringing of the child as a woman. All the questions about birthing and abortion and all the different things while the child is still a fetus during the gestational period, nobody care about what a man have to say. But as soon as the baby born, the man equally as important as the mother, all of a sudden. So if I had to be just as important as you, and all you want to carry me for cocoa tax, you know, I have to be no well, real talk, right? I have to be in the middle of the decision making process too. If you could have a child that could change the course of my life, then I should have a say because the same way you could choose to have the child and and then I have to support it and I do have a choice. It's the same way if we want to say we could choose, then I could choose not to have the child too. Because you can't tell me it's up to you alone.
I agree with what you're saying, homie, but it all boils down to what is the reason that you're trying to terminate this child for. If you're trying to do it just because you know that you can't be bad mind, but your leg always high up in the air like Sunday worship, I believe that, yeah, that that talk where you just said it, the how you say, the illustration you just use applies to that. But if it's some kind of medical issue, I believe that it can be treated the same. If you understand what I'm saying, right? It can
Yeah,
be
if it's
treated
a
the same,
medical issue, different. If it's
right?
a social
Mhm.
issue, we're talking about socially, what good for the goose,
Yeah,
good for the gander. If you can make a
right.
choice based on what convenient for you, I should be able to make a
hmm
choice based on what convenient for me.
I agree with what you're saying, but
Me,
what I just saying is that if it's some medical issues, fine,
Yeah, we
right?
treat
But
that
if
different.
you just ups and say, well, here's the scene, right? I bust it open wide and I can take care of this and I go in and get rid of it, well then fine. Yeah, you had to get where you had to get commented. But I just me.
okay, so can I interject?
Yeah, go
No.
ahead.
Right. So I also agree with you. I think the father of an unborn child, like I can't speak tonight, sorry, should have rights when it comes to abortion, when it comes to, you know, different things that go on through pregnancies, like being able to see the medical records, all these type of things, right? I agree with that. However, you see, this whole topic kind of have me advocated for like celibacy and only having sex with your husband, because if you out here in these streets, I'm sorry, if you're single and you're sexually active, I'm going to assume you're having sex with multiple people. A bold face. I'm sorry, right? Because it's very rare that the paternity of a child can be determined whilst the woman is pregnant during pregnancy. It has to be determined afterwards. No,
You
it's
could
rare.
determine
It's
that.
rare that they do it. That's why I said it's rare. In the research that I did, it's rare that they do it. At least in the States. I
Oh,
don't know if
okay.
they do it
That
here.
they read that they want to, because I watch Real Paternity Court when they do.
Well, I don't know. But they say that in the research that I found, that is rare that they do it because of that, or at least rare at the time of the instatement of the law. At the time of the law, when the law was made, at least it was rare around that time. They put the rights, they leave the rights for the mother, right? So a father's right, that's why a father's rights only comes in after the baby is born. And like, okay, I found some research here, it just says here, I'm going to read it very quickly. The Supreme Court recognizes the fundamental rights a person has to parent their child, even if the parents are not together or married. But the father does not have the same parental rights as the mother pre-birth. So a mother cannot be forced into giving birth if she wants to terminate the pregnancy. Fathers do not have to be notified. Oh, also to note, fathers do not have to be notified prior to an abortion. The decision is left entirely in the hands of the mother. I would like to speak on that, right? I think this is absolutely ludicrous. I think that any time, like any woman, okay, you find out you're pregnant, and you know you've been sleeping with multiple men within the time frame that you can get pregnant. Is it Jay, do you know, is it a short or long time frame? Is it a few days or a week, 2 days?
What you mean?
Your ability to get pregnant. What phase is that again?
Ovulation.
Ovulation. That's it. Thank you. So what, we ovulate for only 1 day, right? But we have a ovulation period where it's yes, right. Okay, good. Thank you. So in that short period, you've slept with multiple men. I think the humane thing to do, even though it's not really in the law as I'm seeing, would be to at least notify the potential fathers, right? I think, and even though it's not in the law, I think that, again, this is more of a human thing. The humane thing to do would be to at least consult them if you will to look for abortion, like to get an abortion. At least, like, come on, man. Like, I don't even like speaking on this because I advocate for celibacy. I'm sorry. This is just too
If
crazy for me.
I was sleeping with multiple men, I'm not going to ask anybody what I could do with my body. If I'm sleeping with multiple men, I'm not asking you anything, because did I ask you to sleep with multiple men in the first place? No. I just did what I felt I do it.
Uh-huh.
So if I am the type of person to sleep with multiple men, then I am not going to be the type of person to call up Tom, Dick, and Harry and say, here's what am I going and get rid of this child, That's just not
That's why I say
realistic.
it's humane. I said the
But
humane thing. Them not humane.
um, on the whole topic of whether a father has rights, etc., right? I agree, a father does have rights. However, if I wanted to get rid of the child and he wanted the child to live, would it be a bad thing if I just give birth to this child and throw it on him and have absolutely nothing to do with it after? Children need two parents.
Yes, of course it's
But
bad.
then
Then he's a deadbeat mother.
the reverse argument is, if I don't want the child and you want the child, shouldn't you have to take care of the child too?
Well, exactly.
And not raise what's it called for fathers?
Child support.
Child support.
Maintenance. Yeah. It already is an
I see.
accepted social norm that is a deadbeat father if you say I don't want the child and leave the mother to raise it on she would. So it's even worthwhile bringing up the opposite scenario. It's straightforward, is a deadbeat
So I
mommy if
will say
that's the
something.
case.
Yeah,
And
sure.
now I want to ask now, if I don't want the child and you don't want the child, but so we feeling guilty of not having the child and we have the child and put it up for adoption, that bad? Or that's okay?
I believe that bad.
Okay, I guess.
Well, then now we have the lesser of two evils, I guess. Adopt.
Only this whole topic is dysfunction breeding
Want it, but
dysfunction.
throw it away. We didn't want it, but at least we didn't throw it away.
Then what you doing blazing? What
Some
you doing
children go
blazing?
have a good life. Some.
Some children, what?
Yeah,
I
repeat
said
Asia.
some children go on for adoption and live a better life than they would have lived with their original parents. Some with rape,
True.
yes.
And then some of them spend their entire lives in the orphanage and they become a statistic when they come outside.
Well, not
Yep.
entire life, but entire child life.
Yeah, their entire child life in the orphanage, and then they become a statistic when they go outside. Drug addict, or they kill themselves from all of the SA. I can't say it on YouTube.
Yeah, uh-huh.
They
They unalive themselves from all of the SA that they experienced in the orphanage.
And then some of
they
them,
put
when they, if they do decide to live, they, have mental, not, I don't want to say disorders, but like things like abandonment issues,
they
and then it
probably
just
they will
breeds and
have
continue to breed this cycle, like I said, of just dysfunction.
So then,
they will have
is
gone through that.
go
They
ahead,
still
Isha.
wanna go through that. They still wanna go through that with their original parents because the parents didn't want them. So all
True.
that thing there don't matter.
So right. So then, it, right. So then, is adoption even a good option when it comes to people not wanting children? No, I did some research, and in America, about 1 million people per year are waiting to adopt children. But we know how the adoption um, drive could be. Just now, let me see it. Right.
God blood drive.
So
Wow.
there are nearly 1 million abortions a year and over 1 million couples waiting to adopt in the United States. So there are people waiting to adopt children, right? However, in the waiting, not many people will get through with it. In Trinidad, the adoption rates, and this is according to the Express newspaper, the adoption rates are that only 8 children per year are legally adopted. And quoting statistics provided by the Children's Authority, there were 600, I can't remember which year this was, but there were 651 children ages 2 and upwards living in 40 orphanages or children's homes across Trinidad and Tobago. How often it is for a Trinidadian to say, okay, I want a child, let me go and adopt.
Listen, oh God,
And
help
so
us.
all of this now, go ahead, Sean.
No, I say, and I feel like it's not that popular here to adopt children for whatever
Exactly.
reason. I know there are people who want and they can't have, and that's an option, and I don't know why they don't take it. Or it's either they don't take it, or the system is such a way that they make it so hard because they say like only 8 children. I think the system just makes it very hard for you to adopt, and then these children now just end up, like I said, maybe a statistic when they come out. I think very few of them actually make good after they come out of those homes, at least the ones here in Trinidad. I don't know about everywhere else. They're not
Let's
making it a
So,
big thing, right?
sorry, Isha.
so maybe I could add some
Sorry.
insight to this situation. I've been
Just
to
hold
visit some of
on, hold
these.
on. let's just address some of the comments we have here.
I was about to
Um,
do that actually.
oh, okay.
One of the
So
last comment is one I was about to comment on,
Suzanne
which
Hippolyte
is that,
said the
go ahead.
right, if the father of the child is a rapist, does he still have rights as a father? That is a good one. I don't know what Giselle was commenting on here, but she said it has persons that married and can't make children, so adopting is their way. Yes, look at the positive, true. But I think Shan already addressed that when she said that many people are infertile and they still wouldn't go and adopt the children anyhow you take it. Susan
And
Hippolyte
then
said,
those who decide, sorry, and then those who decide, she said that those who decide the system may make it difficult for them to adopt.
yeah, issues of dysfunctionality are not exclusive to institutionalized children. True that. Adoption as a legal process is not cultural in TNT. In our culture, we simply take unwanted children into our homes. Exactly. That's precisely what I was thinking. But then sometimes it's a case of, oh, well, I know Margaret dead and Margaret child have nowhere to go, so let me go and take Margaret child. Not let me go into the adoption agency, pick one, and say, you, come.
Exactly. So really and truly, we already have a form of adoption that exists here in our own form. And I don't want to call it a necessary evil, but that's basically what adoption is. It's not something that ever really should have existed, but the existence of adoption is better than the lack of adoption because, like the commenter was saying, dysfunction is not something that only exists in the institutions. And more than likely, these children that dealing with this level of dysfunction would have been rescued from situations that would have provided them with severely worse dysfunction. So consider the situations where parents that had children and they're not in a position to be able to care for them, which is frequently what is the case for the children that end up in these homes, because I visited many of them and met many of the children and heard a lot of the stories. And you would be surprised to hear some of the circumstances that a lot of those kids come from. And it's situations where orphanages and the possibility for adoption didn't exist. The situations would have been far more adverse, much more dysfunctional. So I think even though we would argue that adoption and the case of adoption it doesn't stem from a great place, is a less than ideal solution to an even worse problem. So I am, in that sense, I am pro adoption. Well, for the other reasons too, like infertility and so on. But the alternative to adoption would have been worse than adoption.
Adoption, like the legal adoption in Trinidad, not even, they don't really advertise it. Like when you go in the hospital and the health centers, you will see posters on the wall, breastfeeding and this and that. You will see that a lot, but you don't see posters on adoption and things. Many people just don't have the education, they don't know about it. They would don't have a problem with adopting, but they just don't know what the process is.
I have a question, right? If, let me just say, the government is to ban abortion, right? Or terminating children, what do you think will be the cons of that?
Well, one that I know. Okay, so in research of this whole topic, this whole conversation, I found out a lot about abortion and some of the history of abortion, right? And back in the day, before the whole Roe v. Wade situation in 1973, so before that, there was this thing called the genes, where it's like basically sort of like a hotline, an underground hotline thing, where women who wanted abortions could call up. They would ask, I think, their name, when was their last menstrual cycle, just some information, and they would set an appointment or whatever, right? And in doing further research on them, I also found out that some of these procedures to terminate the pregnancy weren't even done by doctors. And just to think of the possible health risks, the fact that that too is that may endanger the mother's life because it's not even done in a safe um, environment or by a certified person. So if there are any medical complications or anything like that, the person who doing it just know how to do the procedure. Like that's my thinking. They just know how to do the procedure. They don't know about after. I don't know if they know about aftercare or if something goes wrong throughout the procedure, what to do. Or I think it could. I think it opens up. Even though I'm for it, I think it opens up something dangerous that was happening back in the day. It reopens the issue.
Okay, well, to comment on that, remember what the question Aaron asked there is actually the reality here in Trinidad. Abortions are illegal here. So it's not a matter if it was banned. It is banned. Currently, you cannot legally have an abortion in Trinidad and Tobago. So all the things that Krista just mentioned there is the actual reality for us in Trinidad and Tobago. You go to these pseudo doctors who specialize in doing this type of procedure, and they have a reputation, they have an underground reputation that everybody knows somebody who knows the guy that you could go by to get these things done. And they do, you know, they do some basic checks. They check your height, they check your blood pressure, they check your blood sugar, they do a basic examination, and then as long as you check some very basic boxes, then they will administer your medication. And if it doesn't work, then you end up in the hospital system to do more intensive procedures like something called a DNC, or they give you more aggressive drugs to help induce labor and cause a miscarriage. But that is exactly what happens now, because you can't walk into the hospital or any other medical facility that wants to keep their practicing license and ask for an abortion. It's illegal here. So the backyard abortions is what happened in Trinidad for, I don't know, the last 50, God alone knows how long. I've had
And just
friends
to
who've
add
had
quickly
multiple
before
orgasms,
somebody else. Oh,
multiple. What's the word I was
Termination.
looking for? Yeah, well, forgive me for that.
Termination. That's okay.
Yes,
Termination.
multiple terminations done, and after you
Were
do a
you too,
few,
man?
you understand? After you do make out now, after you do a few, they eventually tell you that if you do any more, you may not be able to even get pregnant again. Actually, that was the advice I was given to a friend of mine. That she had so many procedures done to terminate pregnancies that she was advised that if she has another, that she's unlikely to be able to get pregnant again. And this is all done by the the backyard guys that doing this and seeing dozens of people a day. You know, so that's just something to think about.
I would just like to quickly add before somebody else jumps in. My earphones were coming out, so I don't know if you touched on this, but if you did, I'll just like to reiterate. For those people who found guilty of abortions in in Trinidad and Tobago, you will be subjected to 4 years imprisonment, and for those who either aided in finding out or basically finding out about abortions or any way that you aided in someone getting one, you are subjected to 2 years in prison. And these are for those cases where it is found unlawful. There was a case where a doctor terminated a young girl's pregnancy because she had been graped, graped by a group of soldiers or a group of men, and he did not suffer any consequences. I guess he did not go to jail because it was deemed lawful. So I do think also that the laws in Trinidad kind of, I don't know, there's room there I find, like, instead of just saying nah, it's not permitted in general. And if you excuse me, if you decide to terminate for whatever reason, you're going to jail. Like, I find that there, sorry, I lost my train of thought. There is sort of, this is what I wanted to say, sorry. It is dependent on the judgment of another human being. So if the judge finds you unlawful, you will go to jail, you will suffer the sentence.
So
If
what
he or she
about
doesn't, you don't, obviously you don't suffer any consequences.
what about body autonomy? Do we believe that women have a say over their own bodies, even though they are pregnant? Remember, they are the carriers. So should a woman decide outrightly that, hey, my rights matter more than this baby?
Hit with the Aaron. Let me articulate my thoughts.
Let me be real with all you, right? Um, this is not how I feel, but I believe that it's their body, it's their choice. If they choose to do whatever they want with it, that is their business. Let me just put it simply like that.
Because
Okay.
huh, you see, these are the things that people ask, and yeah, these are the things that people ask, and sometimes it's very difficult to answer because as much as we know, yes, the right thing is to say, um, you can't decide on another person's life and all these different things, right? The reality is that most people will say, it is my body and I chose to have unprotected sex, and now I can choose to get rid of this human that is growing inside of me. And most people don't even consider embryos to be alive. Most people don't consider fetuses to be a real baby. How do we go about even convincing them that, hey, this is wrong? What does the Bible have to say about this?
Well, I think I could help with that perspective. But before we get into what the Bible has to say about it, we had to consider that before there was an ultrasound, medically they used to consider life happening at the point of giving birth. And now that they have an ultrasound, they could actually determine the development of the fetus and heartbeats and movement and all of that over, a much earlier than long before birth, within a couple of weeks, within 8 to 12 weeks. And science even has evidence to support that they could determine what happens at the point of conception itself, where there's something that they observe in science called an explosion of fireworks when a human egg is activated by a sperm enzyme. So there's actually scientific evidence to support that there's life from the moment of conception, and that is the belief that the medical fraternity as a whole uh, currently has, that the beginning of life is the moment of conception itself. So if you look at it from that perspective, then also doctors say that when they're treating with patients, with a pregnant woman, they look at it as having two patients. It's not a pregnant woman, and they consider the unborn child as a part of her. They consider the unborn child's needs and the woman's needs as two separate matters, and they attend to both as though it's two patients they're dealing with at the same time. So that's something to take into consideration. So the doctors actually look at the unborn child as a separate person. So which is good because the Bible has a similar perspective, as far as the Bible is concerned. And as Christians, we have to take into consideration what God has to say about it. The first and the most obvious thing is, if we have to assume that we're dealing with another human life that is alive from the moment of conception, then Exodus 20:13 has to come into play. Thou shalt not kill. That is one of the, I mean, it's one of the commandments. God said, and it's straightforward. If it's considered another human life, you're not allowed to take it. Uh, but just so we don't oversimplify, there are other scriptures too. Krista touched on one earlier on, Psalms 139, where it says, "For you created my innermost being, and you knit me together in my mother's womb." She went on to give the rest of the scripture, which also pertinent. There's one in Jeremiah 1:5 that says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you." So as far as God's concerned, you have an identity even before you start taking form in the womb at all. So God's stance on when a human life becomes a human life is even more extreme than medical science and the perspective of society. As far as God is concerned, you're actually a human life even before you start becoming a fetus. Um, there's another scripture, Luke 1:41, where Elizabeth heard Mary's greeting. The baby leapt in her womb. So they're actually saying, this baby has a personality, the baby has understanding, even as a fetus. Isaiah 49:1 says, "Before I was born, the Lord called me. From my mother's womb, he has spoken my name." Called from the womb.
Yes.
Ecclesiastes 11:5 says, "As you do not know the path of the wind, nor how the body is formed in a mother's womb, so you cannot understand the work of God, the maker of all things." So God is saying, we can't pretend to understand at what point any of this becomes relevant to human life, because he had plans for it long before it even became something we could notice with medical science.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
years ago, like I was saying, before the ultrasound, we didn't even know what was in there until it was born. And then later on, the ultrasound helped us to dial it back to a couple of months. And now science has started to make further
We-
further movements, and they're able to determine life now at the moment of conception. But God says that there's human life even before that. So that's in a nutshell what the Bible has to say about it. We're not allowed to take human life, and human life has significance even before conception.
All right. And just
Um,
go ahead, Krista.
well, I just want to add one scripture because he for Maris. Isaiah 44:24 says, "This is what the Lord says, your Redeemer who formed you in the womb. I am the Lord, the maker of all things, who stretches out the heavens, who spreads out the earth by myself." Right? Now, my take on this and other scriptures as well, just me reading the Bible and understanding who God is. So just go back to your main question, which was, is it right that a woman has rights of her body during pregnancy? What was your main question, please? Just answering it correctly.
Yes, that was question.
Okay. I think that women have been blessed, we have been privileged with the honor of carrying life and with the responsibility, and we were given the responsibility of nurturing life. And that's the life that God has created. He is the maker of all things. This is what I believe. He is the maker of all things. And even though what I feel, I feel very strongly on this. I'm kind of thing. But I believe that we were given the privilege to do this, to bring life into this world, and we were also given the responsibility to take care of that life. And I think that women should not, because it's not even fair that men have a right of their own child whilst she is pregnant. That man has no right until that baby is born. So no, he has no right legally. Legally, he has no right. From what I've researched, he has absolutely no right. And if that to me is so unfair. So why should a woman have right? Right? But then I'm a woman, and if I were to have, like, if I were some woman, some bicycle out there, or let's just say I made a mistake and it was a bad mistake, or I went through one of
Fell on
those
a phallus.
experiences. Oh God, don't say that. You can't fall on. No, never mind. I'm not going into that. If even the topic of graping or incest or any of these things, as I said earlier, I don't know what I would decide. I don't know what I would choose, if I would choose to let this baby live or if I would choose to just thing it. And I believe that women shouldn't have the choice, but I also like that we do.
Okay, so on the issue of graping, right? Is it okay for a woman to terminate pregnancy in that instance? That and incest? What do we say to that? In my opinion, I am saying that it is all well and good for me to say, no, she shouldn't. However, I have not been in that situation. And so, therefore, all of my comments will be um, based on morality and what I know of God and of the Bible. But once again, it is easy for me to sit here and say, no,
Exactly.
don't do that. Because imagine giving birth to something that resembles your the monster
Abuser.
that did that to you, your abuser, yes. And if this child comes out with the same traits, like personality wise and such, and sometimes the tendency to even assault people in that way is passed down through generations because of this generational demon curse. So, what will we say to someone who has gone through that? I know, well, I've heard stories where people have kept the child, but clearly they are God's chosen people, right? They are God's chosen ones. And yeah, imagine having to
Listen,
relive that over and over and over and over in this human being.
I think this topic, and especially the specific one about incest or rape or whatever, has to be handled with grace and has to be handled with care. Because, as you said, it is so easy to look at somebody and say, oh, you shouldn't do that. You should, like, no. Because, yes, morally, we all know, and what we know of God, we all know that it's not right. Right? In any circumstance, it's not right. We're not saying it's a right thing to do. But I personally cannot look at someone who has been through that trauma, been through that pain, and tell them what to do. Because let's just say, all right, they were forced to keep it. Let's say a parent was like, no, in no circumstance, you shouldn't do this, right? You don't know what, you don't know if this person has access to mental aid, so like a counselor or anything to deal with that trauma. You don't know how long it's going to take to deal with that trauma. You don't know, even with adoption, because we spoke on that earlier. I guess it is the lesser of two evils, right? It's the lesser of two evils, but again, even it is an evil. And there's some women who even going through pregnancy, like they the same case I read about, I spoke on earlier about the young girl um who was raped by the multiple men. A topic came up about how during pregnancy she might, try to kill herself or kill her and the baby, or kill, like, try to cut the baby out of her because of the fact that, all right, she is carrying this seed, this this child of her abuser. And because we have not been through those things, I really, really do think that we need to just take a pause for a second, lower the temperature a little bit, and come in with some understanding there, come in with some love, and help as best as we can. If we are in the presence of someone who's considering an abortion or considering this avenue, I don't think the productive thing to do would be, all right, go, don't do it, you'll go to hell.
Krista,
I don't think the productive thing to do would be that.
if
Go
I
ahead,
may
Ira.
say something, right?
You absolutely can.
In Deuteronomy chapter 2, 25 to 29, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was the old time days, that was the old laws. Yeah, that was the old laws, right? Basically, what it was saying in that whole chapter there is was that the
Mm-hmm.
punishment for rapists, right? Well, at least piece
Mm-hmm.
of it, I should say,
Uh-huh.
right? And it's saying in some instances the rapist would have to pay the father of the daughter for life, right? According to the
Mm-hmm.
circumstances of what happened. In another case, the rapist will have to die, right? According to
Mm-hmm.
what the circumstances may permit. I'm not going in, I'm not reading the scripture because I'm watching the time and we are and let me be realistic here, you know, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah, I
in
understand.
the other instance, the rapist, sorry, YouTube, will have to
You
married,
done?
will have to get married to the person he did his stuff to.
Okay, but we talking about these days and them thing don't happen. So
Well,
All
these
right.
days,
Maybe I could help Ollie with some others. Well, I don't think we restricted only to the moralistic Judeo-Christian POV or the social uh, or the general social outlook. I think there's another way to look at this, and there's my perspective on it. Right. First, we have to look at what sexual assault is. Sexual assault is a terrible, heinous criminal act, and if we are to be realistic about it, in our system of justice, forget any Bible, right? Just from a perspective of law and social justice. We don't punish the victims, we punish the criminals. And we also don't punish the children of the criminals. When you commit a crime, they don't send you and your child to prison. They send you, correct? So it's unreasonable to look at it from the perspective of somebody commits a crime or does something terrible and you punish the children for it. It's not the children's fault. Now we understand that there's a special circumstance, and like you all say, you have to handle these situations with grace. But sexual assault is already a traumatizing experience as it is for a woman. And we understand the perspective of the first thing that will come to mind, which is you're forced to carry the monster child. But that is looking at it from through a lens that you're disregarding the fact that terminating the pregnancy is also a tremendously traumatic experience. That is not something we touch on at all tonight, but which are the effects of of terminating a pregnancy on women, because we assume that it's just a decision, and after the decision, life goes on. But in this
It does.
Mm-hmm.
instance, we have to take into consideration that we are already dealing with somebody who went through a traumatic experience, and we proposing as a solution to the problem or something to help them is to pile on a second traumatic experience on top of that to help resolve the situation. But sexual assault is a violent act inflicted on a woman. She's an innocent victim in that situation, and terminating the pregnancy is a violent act done against the unborn child, and in this instance the woman is the aggressor, so it seems counterproductive to ask somebody who's already a victim of sexual assault to now become the aggressor and encourage her to take the life of her own unborn child as some sort of therapeutic measure to help her to feel better about the situation. All that does, for more than likely, what that does is just compounds the problem. You just give her additional things now to deal with that, where she is already facing a extraordinarily traumatic experience. To me, the compassionate way to help people who are victims of sexual assault is to help to meet the needs of the mother, provide medical assistance, financial assistance, emotional care, counseling, and stuff like that, as an alternative to encouraging them to terminate the pregnancy and pile on further traumatic stress
And
onto
that's
already.
actually, I was just going to say that's exactly what I was just going to add, because I agree with you. I think the thing that we need to do is provide the resources for people who are considering this thing, whether it's counseling, like whatever traumatic situation they went through, whether it's counseling for that, whether it's all right, they're in poverty, so how they're gonna take care of the shallow, at least prenatals, how they're gonna get the vitamins and stuff that they need, set
Exactly.
up some
Because
sort of system. But this is
assuming
go
that
ahead.
putting this criminal's innocent child to death is going to be is going to bring some sort of resolution or peace or ability to proceed with her life for the mother. Is to me that is an unrealistic perspective.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you and Krista. So just to end the show, I would just like to ask one more question, right? What do you tell someone who has already had an abortion?
Depends on the person. I think
I could help with that too. But go ahead, Krista. Go ahead.
I think that it depends. Like if a person is like okay, you touched on it earlier. You said that one of the effects of abortion. Sorry, that there are effects of abortion, and one of them is you go through hormonal shifts as well. You feel remorse. You feel so many things, and I think in that space, people could be one of two things. Women could either be one, I had an abortion, guy good, I good, thing. Whereas like, all right, I see it as at that point, I can't really speak to you because you're wrong and strong in a way, right? I as a Christian want to try and touch your heart. So for the person who is remorseful, I will sit you down and I will say, okay, so that this was not a very good decision or the right choice or whatever. I might say something along those lines, and I might say, honey, the thing about God is like I'll try to use it as a way to evangelize to you. I'll be like, the thing about God is that He offers salvation and He offers grace and He loves you. And I don't want you to just take this grace and this salvation for granted. I want you to understand how how deep it goes, how much our Heavenly Father loves you. And I'm not going to go so deep into it as, because we had 1 or 1.5 or something like that. But basically try to get them to come to Christ, understand His love for them, understand the measure of grace that He has, and learn to value it, right? And so hopefully once they understand that and understand their wrongdoing, they could move towards a better direction in terms of, okay, if they ever were to make a mistake again or were to end up in this situation again, they may have a different outcome or a better outcome because the
Right.
act is
So
already done. Go ahead.
Okay, so
Sorry.
so
let me add to that
basically,
when you
bas-
finished it.
basically we have to I narrowed it down to three things, right? So forgiveness from God. They have to understand that God is a very forgiving God and He's gracious. And they also have to know that they need to forgive themselves, which may be hard, but they will be able to do it in time, hopefully, right? And then how God sees you. They have to understand that God does not see them as less. He's still a very loving Father. And
Yes.
because He throws our sins into the sea of forgetfulness, that does not mean that you'll continue doing what you're not supposed to do, but just
Yes.
understand that God sees you as someone who is in need of His grace. For example, Ephesians 2:8, it says, "For by grace you have been saved, that not and that not of yourselves. It is a gift from God, so that none of us shall boast." Right. So once again, yes, we can condemn people who are pro-choice. We can condemn people who have had abortions, but none of we could boast because it's by the grace of God we didn't end up in situations like that. right? Including the sexual assault situations. And also moving forward with God, right? And I just took this excerpt from somewhere. Trauma often throws us into a state in which we are constantly reliving the past and barely surviving the present. However, with healing comes the ability to live in the present, but also to plan and dream about the future. Even though we have undergone trauma with our pregnancy and abortion experience, God still has a future for us. He can heal us, restore us, and give us a new purpose. So that is my take on those who have been sexually assaulted in any sort of way, or even those who just decided to do whatever they thought was best. So
Right.
go ahead and listen. 2 minutes.
Right. So yeah. So two quick things. Right. For those for all the viewers or anybody who will see this in the future, considering having an abortion, and also I also want to say something about those who have already carried out an abortion and trying to deal with it after the fact. So I'll give a little bit of my personal experience. I have gone through in the past a miscarriage, and an abortion is a severely worse and more traumatic experience to deal with. Sorry, a termination of a pregnancy. And this was my experience. After experiencing the miscarriage, 5 years later, I was watching an episode of a sitcom called The Neighborhood. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but one of the couples had lost a baby, and they went through a similar experience to what I went through. And one of the parents was dealing with it like, they were pretending like it wasn't really happening, and they was pretending like they were okay about it. And I realized at that moment, 5 years later, that I was that person. And in the midst of that episode, and I don't cry. I break down and start to cry. And it take me about an hour to catch myself. And this was after a miscarriage of a 3-month-old fetus. So consider for a moment that making a decision to terminate your pregnancy is not something that you'll do and just move on with your life. It's something that's going to be extraordinarily difficult for you to deal with after the fact. And I could tell you from a male perspective, so you could imagine how it could be for a woman to have to do something like that and think that
Mm-hmm.
it could be everything just moving on like cool.
Yeah.
Just to give all you some information about that, after terminating a pregnancy, 81% of women develop mental health issues. And they're
Hmm.
2.5 times more likely to abuse alcohol and 3 times more likely to abuse drugs after terminating a pregnancy. So consider them numbers,
Yeah.
them percentages ridiculous. It's almost every woman the same. 4 out of 5 women will deal with mental health issues. So as for those who already went through an abortion, terminated a pregnancy and dealing with the guilt, you know, as a Christian, I'm gonna be remiss for us not to mention some of the things Jade was saying before, that Psalms 103 says that God has forgiven all our sins and heals all our diseases. Luke Luke 4:18 says, He sent me to heal the brokenhearted. So consider those who already feel like they've gone experience and they can't forgive themselves, they have a broken heart, that you could take that to the Lord, and He actually came specifically to help deal with those situations. Before He say anything about salvation or any of the other things, the first thing He says is that He was sent here to heal the brokenhearted. And Romans 3:24 says that he was sent here to free us from the penalty of our sins. So don't feel that you have to carry about that guilt, that ton of bricks on your shoulder for the rest of your life, thinking that you do something that can't be forgiven. God, Jesus has provided what one day you'll be able to see that you terminate again in heaven, because that life, as the Bible says, is one that existed even before conception, and it still exists today in heaven. So you have the opportunity to see your unborn child
Okay, I don't know what just happened there, but I hope the viewers heard and saw what you, well, the video and heard what you said. Okay, sorry about that. It only happened at the end of the show, right?
And
So, we want to just thank all of our viewers, all of our listeners. Thank you so much for lighting up the comment section. We just ask for you to like this video right now. Go to your phones, go to your laptops, like. It's going to take 1 second. Like it, no, 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 no. Share this video. Subscribe to our channel, and we would love to have you on week after next week for another episode of Hear This Now. Follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, like this video, subscribe to the channel, get caught up with all our other conversations. And thank you once again for being very, very active as usual. Thank you and good night. Enjoy the rest of your night and your weekend. All right. Bye bye.
bye.